Hi everyone, great to be back again. It's been a while, I think a little over a week, and it's just been so very busy. I just haven't had the time that I needed to make a couple more videos. So yeah, it's great to be back. My pleasure to be back again, and great that you have tuned in. Um, I got a comment from, I'm sorry, I forget the viewer's name, the subscriber. Um, there was a comment about making just a short video on being an only child raised by a narcissistic parent. And I think this is a very important topic as well because, yes, usually what is often spoke of here on YouTube is being growing up in a narcissistic home with siblings, and who is the scapegoat, who is the golden child. So a lot of videos are made on that, but I haven't seen very many on being an only child being raised by a narcissistic parent or both parents. So thank you for bringing up that topic. Um, Excuse me, I don't have a whole lot of experience, of course, with this, but again, from speaking with clients, from reading up on it, I have just jotted down a few things, made a couple of notes here. So the only child, I believe, is under tremendous pressure, you know, being raised by a narcissistic parent or both parents. I'll just keep referring to one in this video, but they're under an extreme amount of pressure because the only child, of course, is everything, is the whole package to the narcissistic parent. It is their primary source of supply. The child is the primary source of supply. So, of course, all the nasty emotional abuse that goes on, every single aspect of that is put onto the child. The scapegoating, the golden child, the blame game, the projection, the gaslighting, all of this lying to the child as well. Everything is put onto that only child, and that has got to be devastating. Um, there is maybe one perk, and that is when the narcissistic parent is having a good day, that the child will not have to fight for attention. Whereas if there are siblings involved, of course, you're always having to, um, you know, fight for attention. So I think that is the only perk on a narcissist's good day, is that the child will not have to fight for that. And that is about the only perk I can imagine. Um, but yes, the child has an extreme price to pay for being the single and primary source of supply to the narcissist. It is, of course, the assuring of the parent. The only child has to be assuring the parent all the time, has to be praising them, has to be listening to all of their woes, all of their troubles, has to be putting them in the spotlight all the time from a very young age. And not only that, but of course, the only child is, as I think I just said, is the whole package. Um, they are the counselor to the narcissistic parent. They are the friend. They are the companionship. They are the caregiver when the narcissistic parent is sick. A young child is expected to take care of the sick parent. So from a very young age, there is a lot of pressure and a lot of responsibility placed onto the shoulders of a very young child. They have to also survive without the emotional and, in some cases, physical support from a healthy parent who is capable of giving authentic love. So if the child is being raised by a single narcissistic parent, then of course there is no emotional support from other siblings or from the second authentically loving parent. So I think what also comes into that is that there is a lot of loneliness in this child's life. Because as we all know, the narcissist cannot handle, when if we look at it from adults going through emotional or narcissistic abuse, you know that the narcissist does not favor the fact that you might be befriended with other people, that you are still seeing friends and family. So they like to um, exclude you from that. They do not want you to have contact, other contact, out of the relationship that you're in. So this is the same way for an only child, is that they will not be allowed to have friends, or if the friends do come over, or if they go on a play date, for example, that the narcissistic parent will become enraged because they do not like the attention given to others. So it is a very lonely existence as an only child. I'm sure in many cases, an only child being raised by a narcissistic parent will seclude themselves. They will go into seclusion. So they will go to school, come home, do the chores as the narcissistic parent orders, and then they will seclude themselves from life, lock themselves in their room, keep themselves entertained, because they do not want to upset the narcissistic parent. So very few friends involved. They will probably not be allowed to engage very much with other family members, or friends, or after school activities. So it is a very lonely existence for an only child. Um, I think another important point to make is that, as we all know, a narcissist is not capable of maintaining a long-term relationship, and this is because that they are void of authentic, of true love. So you will find that, especially with a single narcissistic parent, there will be a lot of switching of relationships. They will be in and out of relationships, and of course this is a very unbalanced and a very dysfunctional situation to be subjected to as a child, because there will be new lovers coming and going from the life of the narcissistic parent. And of course, when there is this new supply, because that is what a relationship is to a narcissist, they do not get into a relationship for love or for interest in the other person, true interest. It is because they need that supply. It is a boost to their ego. So when they are in and out of these relationships, of course, the focus will be taken off of their primary supply, the only child, and put onto the new lover, the new man or woman in their life. And of course, at some point, these relationships end. And of course, then the narcissist goes into a depression because they have lost their second form of supply. So once again, the energy will be turned around and will be the focus will be put back onto the only child. And I think this is the worst thing that the child can go through, because of course the narcissistic parent is suffering from heartache for the breakup of a relationship. Either they have discarded the new lover in their life, or the new lover has discarded them because they are seen into their bad behavior and recognizing that something is up. So, of course, the narcissist will go into a narcissistic rage about this, and they will blame shift. They will put all the blame onto that child for the breakup of their relationship. So once again, the child will be appointed to be their counselor, to be the caregiver, to comfort them through the breakup of yet another relationship. So can you see how this is just so sick? That a child is given this sort of responsibility, which should never be the responsibility of a child. You should never share these kinds of grown-up issues, of adult issues, with such a young child. But unfortunately, this is something that happens to an only child, and especially in the case of a single narcissistic parent. Um, a narcissistic parent who mistreats their child continuously, which of course is 9 times out of 10, you will find that this parent is more apt to punishing the child more often than is necessary. So if, for example, there is a trauma involved in that child's life, of course, a trauma apart from the abuse that they're already been subjected to by their parent. Say there is something up at school, or a grandparent dies, or there is just some form of trauma in a child's life, you will find that the narcissistic parent will punish the child for showing emotion. So if the child gets hurt or angry or is saddened by this very trauma, this situation that they have had to deal with at that point, they will be punished for showing that emotion. They will be accused of being overly sensitive to a situation. So instead of the narcissistic parent comforting the child through this, no, they will traumatize the child even more by saying, stop being so emotional. Don't show too many emotions. Or you're just being a crybaby. All the sort of bullying that goes on. It just angers me. It really angers me, because I cannot imagine what a young child has to go through, how traumatizing that is. And I have unfortunately been witness to this in my vicinity. I have seen what these children go through, and it is absolutely heartbreaking. And no child should ever have to go through this. But sadly, this is the cold, hard truth in the world that we are living in today, is that, there is so much of this abuse going on. As we are sitting here right now, there is a child being abused by a narcissistic parent, physically and emotionally. And it just breaks my heart to think of that. It is, I just have no words. Because, the only thing, as I'm sure so many of you would want to do, is to just hold on to these children and just carry them through this, take them out of that abuse. Life can be so unfair. It really can. Yeah, because, I'm not a medical doctor. I do not have any medical experience. So please don't hold this above my head. But I can imagine that when a child is subjected to this level of abuse, emotional or physical, being used as a scapegoat, being used as a golden child, being used as all the things that a narcissist uses people for, the targets, and sadly their own children. I can imagine that when you are so out of balance in your head, you at a young age, you have to learn how to cope. You don't know what is happening to you, because at that age, you cannot identify this kind of abuse. You know something is wrong, but you just keep longing for that love from your parent, for the compassion, for all the good nurturing things that a child needs and has a right to. When that is missing from a young child's life, that seriously, of course, messes with your thoughts, with the way you are programmed, with your emotions, with your feelings. And again, I'm not a medical doctor, but I can imagine how this kind of abuse is the breeding ground for schizophrenia. I can imagine that this is, I am not educated on this kind of personality disorder, but I can imagine that this is where the breeding ground is for this disease and so many other things, so many other disorders that develop later on in life. And of course, we have spoken of this before. What happens to a child growing up in a narcissistic home? They can either become the narcissist themselves, especially if they were used as a scapegoat, as a golden child. They themselves might develop into a full-blown narcissist or into the codependent. But there is also another coping mechanism, I believe, when children get a bit older, when they become teenagers, there is one of two ways that they can go. Either they will become very defiant, very rebellious, get into, early or sex at an early age, start abusing alcohol, abusing drugs. That could be one way they go. But the other way, of course, is that they become very introvert. They tend to shut life out. They don't participate in life anymore. They become loners. So I believe there's one of two ways, but of course there could be a third way. I am not, as I said, very educated on this very topic. So, I would really appreciate it if you, the viewer, has been through this as an only child. What were your experiences? How did you learn to cope with that level of abuse? How does it look now as an adult? How do you cope with relationships now? How do you function? These are things that we should not, as society, underestimate, because a child growing up in a narcissistic home is always damaged. And usually it doesn't show up at an early age. It is not visible to the outside world. But as you mature, of course, then this is when all the problems sort of start to surface, and you realize that you need to do something to help yourself because you have been absolutely traumatized. So I would really appreciate it if you would share your story. If you feel that you want to, then please share it. You are helping yourself by verbalizing it, but also, again, helping others who read the comments down here below. Yeah. So there was one other thing that I think that I have also witnessed. A child being a single, or not a single, an only child being raised by a narcissistic parent, is that they develop tics, whether it's sort of, or twitches is the right word, a nervous twitch, compulsive behavior, maybe, constantly washing their hands, constantly combing their hair, facial twitches. This is all anxiety based, this is all stress based. And there are many other ways that this can express itself, the way the trauma can express itself, by showing up with twitches, by showing up with bad behavior, showing up with secluding yourself. There are very many different ways that this can show up. So if you have, as I've just said, if you have experienced, if this has been unfortunately your experience, then please share your story with us. And I wish all of you who are now adult children, maybe also only children of narcissistic parents, I just wish you all the love and all the courage and all the strength to get through this, because this is real, this is so real, and this is so painful to deal with. Thank you once again for watching, and wishing you love and light, and look forward to speaking to you very soon again. Bye for now.